Jai Guru, everyone.
Jai
Jai Guru.
Guru, welcome to the next episode of Yogananda podcast. We're going through the autobiography of a yogi line by line. We have arrived at chapter 23. I get my university degree. And we have, for the first time in a while, a full house. We got Chris, Lauren, and Priyank. How are you guys all doing? Happy? We
Full
just
house.
went through convocation. We're like all spiritually recharged, right?
Hyped. Yep.
Hyped. That's right. That's right.
Mhm.
Ready to go another year.
Yeah.
Yes. So ready.
Always find I was telling the gang before this recording that every year I go through the review classes religiously
Hmm.
and I compare them to my practices and how they're progressing and all that. And every year I find at least five things out of all the practices that we do that I'm doing slightly incorrectly or not doing. And then
Mm.
obviously because of habit, you become unaware of it. And then I'm trying to hopefully get that number down, but every year somehow five things. It's just like an average number.
You're not the only one, Priyank. Yeah.
That's a
If
result.
I if I if I had a systematic approach like that, I could probably find five pretty soon.
I find the monks' interpretation of others' interpretations very funny. You know, how others
Mm.
interpret the energization exercises. Like,
Mm.
don't do this like most people. Most people do it like, it's quite a comical, reading of the situation by them.
Mm.
Yeah, it is. Every monk has their own take on everything, but
Mm.
that makes it interesting as well. Um, let's start with an outlook on this chapter. I think after the last chapter, which was pretty deep and um, it was a life-changing story for um, Mukunda's sister and her husband. This one seems to be more on the light-hearted side.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the camaraderie and the joy they're getting out of it in terms of
Hmm.
everyone's got a common purpose in passing
Hmm.
their exams, getting through the degree, and everyone's like helping each other and cheering when it's like going their way. I love that.
Hmm.
There's lots of humor in this. I'm looking forward to unraveling that.
Hmm.
So, and it's also a lot of faith, I suppose, that Mukunda has, and intermingled with devotion to his guru. So it's faith plus devotion plus kriya,
Hmm.
apparently.
Mm.
The other thing is that I find that I can relate to this chapter a lot
Hmm.
because lots of things that happened in this chapter with exams and camaraderie and stuff happen in my own life.
Hmm.
But I find that Guruji relates it better than I ever could. So it's really nice to hear how he reflects and the nostalgia that I get from his reflections, which is I suppose a good way of connecting with the Guru from
Hmm.
through your own life experiences, which the autobiography provides us many examples of that, I'm sure, each of us in different ways. And then there's lots of intuition in this chapter from different personalities. There's from Sri Yukteswar, there's from Romesh, from Prabhas, Chandra, Ghosh, from Mukunda himself, of course. Sometimes unknowingly, where he just says something and it transpires, which we'll get to. I filling the words of his exam pages with his guru's, life, and then also of his own father, as well. So
Hmm.
each of those have their own nuances, which is an interesting take on the different paradigms and categories of intuition.
Mm. Yes, I second everything that Priya said there. I would add that there's a bit of a story in the sense of duty that we have in this mundane kind of life that we all inevitably lead with education and things like this that would seemingly mundane in comparison to the esoteric kind of nature of the spiritual path that we're on. But yeah, there's a lot of lessons in this that you can take out of it. And yeah, really looking forward to unpacking it with you guys and looking into more depths. We're probably going to find so much more in this, I expect, than what initially meets the eye as we go through it line by line.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I think what you just said, Chris, is kind of what I was also trying to accumulate, that it's a bit about having a balance between the worldly life and the spiritual life, and Guruji is like the role model for us to do it. But in this chapter, you also see that if you do a lot in your spiritual life, it will transfer over and help you with your spiritual duties, right? So it's never a mistake to work hard for your spiritual life.
Yeah, and something that maybe reviewing it ahead of these episodes that we're going to do where we break the whole chapter down is a thought that the rest of the class should take inspiration just from this one situation that they find, this mad monk as he's referred to in this chapter, where maybe they kind of look at it and think, well, maybe there is something to what he's doing, and who knows what ripple effects that would have had in the lives of all the souls that were connected to this story.
Yeah, 100%. That I love. I mean, if this far in the book, we already gotten used to Guruji's humor, the way he writes, his writing style, at times self-deprecating, right? And it starts here with like a scolding of his professor. That is the first sentence of this chapter. His professor is called DC Ghosh, and he's at the Serampore College. And we remember Guruji was at Calcutta University, but now they have a branch in Serampore where Guruji's where Sri Keshwa's hermitage is. So he doesn't have a far commute anymore. He can be in the hermitage and go to school at the same place. And this Professor Ghosh, he scolds him. He says, "You ignore your textbook assignments in philosophy. Now, no doubt you are depending on an unlaborious intuition to get you through the examinations. But unless you apply yourself in a more scholarly manner, I shall see to it that you don't pass this course."
He really has a big vendetta, isn't he, against people that seemingly
Yes.
don't conform to his approach to studying. I too had such a similar vendetta against, because I used to be in the category that he likes his students, as you can probably imagine, and I used to see slackers like Chris that he's pointing to himself even before I said it. Slackers like Chris and Mukunda just like breathing through on their intuition. But I love that he explained this as unlaborious intuition.
Yeah.
Because intuition is certainly not unlaborious in terms of acquiring it. Guruji tells us how we acquire intuition, and dare I say it's probably the hardest thing to acquire, right? It probably takes lifetimes to acquire what Mukunda has in terms of his intuition. But this professor thinks that, he just, he must just born with it as a gift, right? But we obviously work for the gifts that we receive through our past lives, past incarnations. So he obviously doesn't have this gift of intuition, so he perceives it as something that's just, some people have it, some people don't. It's not really worked for, and it's unlaborious. But we, being staunch and regular devotees and meditators and practicer of Guruji's teachings and lessons, know that there's a lot of work that happens. It's not just doing one kriya here and there and it's intuition.
Yeah, I imagine like most people probably put it down just to chance, and they don't this coincidental sort of nature of life that is random, and some people are just lucky and these kind of things. So like you said, Prank, very well, it's quite different when you frame this into reincarnation and over and over and over again in many lives backed up upon one another.
I like that Priyank used the word vendetta here, because I really took issue with how he judged Mukunda here. Because as a professor, you are not supposed to, at least in my opinion, you're not supposed to judge how the student is preparing for a test or something like that, or how he conducts his life. It's really about, if you have a test, how well is he doing on the test? And there shouldn't be there's a part of this where I find his critique reaches far into Mukunda's life, much further than a professor should, in my opinion.
True. Yeah, but he is, of course, only human. But also, I think the educational strictness and conformity that's required in Indian schools is like off the scale. in terms of what's expected by elders in your community and also teachers, because they set the bar exceptionally high.
The word daydreamer came to mind, Mike, whenever you were giving your critique on the professor's approach, because that is something that's really underutilized, your imagination and this idea of daydreaming in class in the Western world, where it is much more book smart study, memorization. It's like essentially a lot of these tests and exams that we do are just memorization tests. Whereas I imagine Mukunda may have been a little bit more in this intuition, daydreaming, kind of using his imagination side of thinking, which is incredibly strong. And many of the greatest, geniuses in the last, 100, 200 years have been criticized for being daydreamers at school.
Yeah. I mean, Lauren can probably tell us that over time the teaching methods have improved a little bit. I only know from my goddaughter and from a friend's kid here, when they go to school, it doesn't seem like it's just, I remember I had a problem when the teacher was just talking for an hour and all we were doing is listening. It's really difficult because my attention span is really not that long. I can give him like 15 minutes and then I'm out. I'm somewhere else. And I think now at least the teachers are trying to be more aware of that and try to engage more with the kids and give them maybe like group exercises or something so they're more engaged. I don't know if that's true. For you,
I
Lauren.
feel like education has become a lot more meaningful these days. It's more student-centered rather than teacher-led. So there's a lot more chance for interaction and learning and actually doing rather than just listening. Because I mean, if you're just listening for an hour, you're just gonna switch off and you've lost everybody in the room. But yeah, it's so sad though how this professor talks to Mukunda, because as someone who teaches, this is like a big no-no, seeing to it that someone doesn't pass just because you don't think that they're trying. As a teacher, you want them to pass no matter what, right? And even if it is through intuition, great. As long as you've learned and you've got the knowledge, that's good. So yeah, it's kind of sad.
Hands up for all those that want to be a student in Lauren's class as a teacher. She would be so good.
Thank you. It's very kind.
Yeah, I think we're slowly going in the right direction. I mean, this is like 100 years in the past, pretty much, right? So we're in an ascending age, so some progress is being made. It was funny that those teachers, they didn't feel the need. So Mukunda wasn't showing up to many classes, and then when he was there, they wouldn't ask him many questions because they felt that he would fail the written test in the end anyway. So that was kind of the way to get rid of him. And we'll see if that works on the next page. But there was a nickname given to Mukunda that he mentions here. That also speaks for what I said. Like Guruji is really trying to show us how the situation was there. So he isn't shy of sharing kind of his nickname he had in school, which was Mad Monk. So they feel like he was very engaged in religious practice and not very engaged in school or in other things.
Quite a funky name, isn't it? I used to get nicknames as well. I think I told you as well, when I was in university, they used to call me Gandhi, not because I was the only Indian, but because I used to try and have really high morals. So I wouldn't let people copy, and wouldn't copy other people's works, even if that meant failing and things like that. But it was, in my sense, it was used in a derogatory way. But I think Mukunda has some good-natured banter there, I think. But he doesn't seem to have been offended into fire.
Mm.
But it's interesting that you have to qualify to sit the final exams, isn't it? It's such a high standard. For us, we just sit the final exam. You can not appear to any class at all and attend final exam and ace it or fail it. It doesn't, it goes one way or the other. Here you have to qualify, which is interesting. The I don't know if it's still
It's
like
the
this.
same.
Is it still
It's the
like that?
same in Austria.
Oh,
In
cool.
Austria, it's still like that. Yeah,
Yeah, it's not
because
like
we
that
are
in the
from
UK, is it, Chris?
we're also from the Middle Ages. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Lauren would be better to answer on the UK education system. I can't really recall. I don't think there was anything like that in Northern Ireland, at least.
I remember when the schooling is so rigorous in India and probably Austria as well. I remember when I first came, and that's at all levels, like from nursery onwards. I remember when I came to this country at 5 years of age. My maths was like 3 or 4 years ahead of my peers in the class. I could, at the age of 5, I'd already memorized my times tables up to 12, and I didn't learn that in school for years after that. And even then, people were struggling, and I was like one of the worst kids in my school in India, and because they'd put me a year ahead because of my date of birth. It was silly, so I really struggled in class. And then I remember, to aid my counting, I'd count like this: 2, 3,
Mhm.
4, 5, 6,
Mhm.
and that for podcast listeners, I'm counting the little segments in each finger. So
Mhm.
each
Mm.
finger's got 3 segments. So then you can count 15 on one hand and 30 on 2 hands. Whereas when I saw people counting like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just getting their fingers out, I was like, what a waste of space. You've got 15 here and you're just using 5. But it's a different culture. And
Where's the fifth? I can count 14. 1, 2,
no,
3, 4, 6,
so
7, 8, 9,
thumb's
10.
actually got 3 segments. You have to look hard.
Where?
All
Where?
right. Oh, come
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
Wow,
So yeah,
never
it's
heard
Oh,
of that.
because of the muscly bit.
No, it's just it depends where you draw the lines.
This line drawing. Okay, I'll take a word for it.
I'll show you next time we're in the same
Yeah.
room.
Yeah. Now, isn't that one of the monks was recommending that for the Kriya counts. So if you're doing your Kriyas, you can count them quite easily, 12 and 12. If you're doing 24, using your hands
Yeah.
instead of the beads,
That's very clever.
and you don't have
Thank
to
you.
make noise with beads and things. That's why
Yeah.
he was saying it.
How do you count 108 then?
Oh, you do it multiples, right? Because you can use the right hand and the left hand together to multiply the 12.
I'd be more focused on this than the Kriya at that stage.
I use that as well.
Oh, dear.
But it's just if you do it for a long time, you just forget about
You
it.
forget
It's
about it,
just-
yeah.
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 But the thing with the beats is that with the beats, you never know where you are right now. And I actually prefer that, because otherwise I always know exactly where I am in my Kriyas. Anyways.
Interesting.
Just one quick one. He also mentions AB degree, which may not be that common, but it stands for Artium Baccalaureus, which means the Bachelor of Arts in Latin. I think we're used to just saying BA as a Bachelor of Arts in England, or BSc, Bachelor of Science, or in my case, Bachelor of Engineering.
I see. So it's like AB is like a BA.
Yeah, I think in Latin.
Okay. In Latin. Okay, makes sense. So Mukunda is, of course, when he heard what Professor Ghosh said, he was like, I'm not gonna take this. I'm gonna outsmart Professor Ghosh. I'm not gonna let him make me fail the class. Not gonna happen. So he said, I took an ingenious step to nullify Professor Ghosh's threat to me of failure in philosophy. And so what he did is he took one of his classmates, because he said, I want a witness. And he went to Professor Ghosh's class. He took this last exam, and Professor Ghosh, he was already waiting for Mukunda, and he was laughing, and he was like, I'm pretty like, I don't think you passed the test, because he wanted to have him fail. And then Mukunda said, how then Professor Ghosh was going through his stack and he couldn't find Mukunda's test. And he said, oh, you didn't take the test at all. And then Mukunda went through the stack himself and found it quickly, because he didn't put his name. He only put his matriculation number, or what number it was, on it, and passed it. And that's why he needed the witness. So Professor Ghosh couldn't just destroy it in front of him, something like that. And that worked, actually. And I found that such a smart way of doing things. Me as a kid, I oftentimes took, when a professor didn't want me to pass, I just had a hard time. I didn't come up with ideas like that to get around it. I mentioned that to the guys earlier. Maybe part of me would have said maybe it's immoral to do it, but it's really not. It's just pushing back with the same kind of means that the professor is trying to push you out, right?
It's the Austrian side in you, Mike.
That's a Catholic, yeah. That defeatist, yeah. Yeah.
Sticking to the rules. Austrian.
Professor Ghoshal has got a vendetta, right? So Mukunda saw his vendetta.
Yeah.
He even kind of insinuates that he wouldn't have passed if he put his actual name down, because like he writes here, unwarned by the red flag quotes by name, the instructor had given a high rating to my answers, even though they were embellished by textbook quotations. I tried to find DC Ghoshal to see if he was anyone of any distinguished nature in literature or in science or whatever. I couldn't find him, unfortunately. But this ingenious method that that Mukunda has come up with, it's used. I think it's used now in modern pop culture. I remember there's a show called Malcolm in the Middle, where him and this Malcolm's a genius, and his older brother isn't a genius.
His older brother is not. He's a bully.
Yeah, he's a bully. But he had to. He had to pass this exam, and his mum told Malcolm, if he doesn't pass this exam, then you're gonna, feel the brunt of it. He's like, what did I do? Why do I have to help him? He's like, I don't care. If he fails, you're gonna get it. So Malcolm's really helping him, but he keeps failing. Like, and then Malcolm's like, I checked your answers. You shouldn't be failing. You didn't get it wrong. And then Malcolm does one of the papers for him, and then he goes through this instance where like he gets his friend to run into the teacher and all his papers go flying, and then he changes the name, and that is a funny episode. But so it seems pop culture has used this kind of reference.
Another pop culture thing that actually came to mind was Suits, and I thought, well, it's another genius character in Suits. Mike, his name is there.
Mike Ross, yeah.
Mike Ross, and it kind of feels like a very lawyer-ish, Suits-ish kind of thing to do, right? You bring a witness, so you cover your back, and you're trying to outwit the other, right? It would be a scary thing, I think, to face Yogananda as a lawyer in another life. In that case, could you imagine how he would turn the tables on so many people?
I think this is also, in our defense, we can't do this, Mike, nowadays, because say we'd tried this exact same thing right now, we wouldn't be allowed to go through the other papers because of data protection. So we wouldn't be able to allow to.
Yeah, times have changed. Hopefully, teachers who have vendettas against students are also less than they used to be.
Actually, now, if I recall, in my university, you don't put your name, you only put your I only put my reference number, so then the teacher can't. And then they fold they fold that up, so they can't even see the examiner can't see the reference number that's written, so it is perfectly independent. But of course, they know, because they know your handwriting, and they perfectly well knew who I was, because I used to for each module I used to have a different colored paper. So the lecturers used to be like, why are you using that? I don't want to see yellow paper. And I'm like, sorry, you're yellow, you got assigned yellow, so you're yellow for everything.
And
So they knew my handwriting, and obviously they
As
would
if that's an excuse. Like, sorry, you're Mr. Blue.
Mr. Blue. In my first 2 years of university, our class sizes were ridiculous. We were like 200 people in class. So there was no way the professor knew any of us by name. Or...
What if one idiot did colored paper?
Yeah. I called him Mr. Yellow, yeah.
Yeah.
Mrs.
Yeah,
Pink
but
over here.
I I'm guessing in those days for Mukunda it was like a very he also stood out. He was very popular. He has his I think he's also always modest with that he is an incredible personality that people of all ages, when they see him, they want to talk to him. He's a very attractive personality, and maybe that's also what caused this Professor Ghosh to take issue with Mukunda, because he actually wanted to change him and make him interested in schooling, and he failed doing so. Maybe there was something like that going on. There's there's a footnote about him where Mukunda defends Professor Ghosh, that he says, "I must do Professor Ghosh the justice of admitting that the strained relations between us were not due to any fault of his, but solely to my absences from class, and that he was a remarkable orator with a vast philosophical knowledge." So he didn't want to leave a stain there. I found it. Oh yeah, Priya.
This line, "In later years we came to a cordial understanding." How much
Yeah.
would you want to be a fly in the wall when because this would have been in 1935 probably, when they came back from India from US to India, and he met all his old, and then
and he would stand there cheering when he arrived. Do you think so?
It would have been a fun conversation. He might have said, "I take it back."
Yeah, you never know what your students are going to end up doing afterwards. Maybe some of them will be very successful. I found the way Mukunda conducted himself here very, very adult and very powerful. And there would have been other students where Professor Ghosh would have done it. Maybe that's also why he did it, because he knew he could get away with it, but he didn't in this case. And there's a section in the new book, Solving the Mystery of Life, which talks about it. It says, "Break out of the cubicle of your limitations," and I like that section. So we're gonna read an excerpt of it. Chris, could you read?
The tendency is to think, "I am what I am. I cannot be different." Believe that, and you are doomed to stay that way. If you reason, "I have this much ability, and I can do no more," you are certain to remain just where you are. You forget that in your youth you were filled with ambition, afire with conviction that you could conquer the world, but gradually the world closed in on you. You were captured by enemies of pessimism, inertia, and naysaying preconceptions that pigeonholed you and your capacities to achieve. Do not remain in that cubicle for the rest of your life. There is a way to break free.
For a small nation surrounded by enemies, it is difficult to achieve independence or expand its territory, but that is because the barriers are outside. In achieving mental and spiritual independence, it is not a question of external obstructions. The confining barrier is yourself and the bad habits that you have created. You concentrate on your limitations and the mental hedges you have cultivated. By your own decree, you have imprisoned yourself and precluded your development. But whatever boundaries you have created, you can undo and destroy, provided you go about it in the right way.
Very nice. Yeah, I feel like this new book is filled with inspiration in this direction, that you cannot take life as it is, but you have to always go past those boundaries that most of the time you're setting yourself. And I was just reminded of this when I read the story of Guruji and the test.
Very true. It's good reading there. I really like, Mike, that you've taken the inspiration to already dive into this book, because virtually every single monk during convocation raised it and promoted it, and I'm glad we're going to carry on that convocation tradition in this podcast and next episode after the podcast after the convocation. But I also it's also he kind of, his attitude gets worse and worse, isn't it? He says, seeing through my trick, Professor Ghosh's, that is, he now thundered sheer brazen luck, and he added hopefully, you are sure to fail the AB finals. It just gets worse and worse, isn't it? You think he'd kind of reflect and say, actually, maybe he wasn't as bad as what I thought, and maybe he does have some training that I didn't know he was training himself for or whatever, but nope, gets worse.
Yeah, you're right, Priyank. It's really not about what a teacher is supposed to do. A teacher is supposed to prepare you for life or teach you a subject or create an interest into a subject. But this is like a personal conflict now where he wishes him bad luck for the future, essentially. Which, I don't know. Guruji defends him probably because he feels that probably the professor felt hurt by his lack of enthusiasm for the philosophy subject, I'm guessing. So it's all good. And like you said, Priyank, probably when Mukunda came back in Paramahansa Yogananda came back in 1935 from America, Professor Ghosh, if he was still alive, was probably cheering him on there. So there was another person that was important here. That was Prabhas Chandra Ghosh. And he was the son of his uncle Sarada. And he helped him get through all the other subjects. So he made a point here of passing philosophy. And in the other subjects, he had someone who prepared him for the tests. And that worked so well that he was passing them all. And now he was able to do the AB examinations. Guruji says here, I hardly expect to avail myself of the privilege. The Serampur College finals were child's play compared to the stiff ones that would be set by the Kolkata University for the AB degree. So Guruji feels like his job is done now. He has passed all the exams, and he doesn't think he will do the AB degree, and he has satisfied everyone in that regard.
Prabhas Chandra Ghosh, we have a picture of him in the Indian print of the YSS print of Autobiography of a Yogi, and it's a very, very scholarly looking fellow with like Gandhi glasses. And I might make that the picture of this episode, actually. And there's a very rugged, mystic looking Mukunda with sporting a good beard, and
he's rocking that beard.
Yeah, he is rocking that beard, definitely. But apparently Prabhas, in the description, says Prabhas Chandra Ghosh and Paramahansa Yogananda in Calcutta in 1919. So this is probably a couple of years after that exam. Sri Ghosh, a cousin and lifelong friend and disciple of Sri Yogananda's, was vice president of Yogoda Satsang Society of India for nearly 40 years until his passing in 1975. So great service to SRF and YSS did Prabhas Chandra Ghosh give. But he is the son of the uncle Sarada. Sarada is, we've heard reference to him a few times, and you'll remember when in the Tarakeshwar episode, Yogananda Mukunda kind of says the temple, this temple that he didn't bow to. His aunt told him that when her husband, this Uncle Sarada, or Prabhas Chandra Ghosh's dad, when he was sick and she was praying for him in this temple, a herb mysteriously appeared in her hand, and he gave that herb, and he was very well. So that's that same Uncle Sarada, and it's also the same Uncle Sarada that went insane at the thought of Mukunda borrowing one of his servants for his trip to the Himalayas. So yeah.
Or he was the vessel. He was the vessel, right? Because maybe Sri Yukteswar sort of had a hand in it or something.
Good memory, yeah. Because it was completely uncalled for, that level of response. Was
unusual,
unexpected, And so the next 3 paragraphs in this chapter, they are where Guruji explains actually why he has this predicament, because he actually is not lazy. He's just choosing to spend his time in another way than scholarly. He's choosing to spend his time with his guru at the ashram and following the ashram lifestyle and duties there. So he says, my almost daily visits to Sri Yukteswar had left me little time to enter the college halls.
You know, I only came on the path whenever I was, 26? And all I can think about right now is if I had have read this book when I was 16, 10 years before, I would have had the best excuse in the world not to do the thing that I didn't want to do, to be like Yogananda and sort of double down. I probably would have actually. So my test results probably benefited from not having read the book, but also I wish in a way I had have, just as a bit of an anecdote here, that today there seems to be a real onus on intellect resulting in success and being studious that will result in success, whereas Yogananda very much teaches success can be obtained, and what it is to be very different to what I think we're typically taught in the West. So probably would have benefited psychologically and all the rest of it, no less stress and so on, having read this book. So I wonder if you guys are the same, or the listeners are the same, that it changes the framing of what success is and the importance of these things and so on. Because Yogananda does it out of the duty to himself and others, but yeah, it's obviously not.
It's a deep subject, I think, Chris. That it's like a whole Pandora's box you're opening here.
I was thinking maybe I shouldn't mention it until at the end.
No, because there is so many things, like when I grew up and how people measured my success when I was a kid was often like that, like in education, how I was doing in sports, how I was doing, and really when you get older, you feel like none of that really matters, right? It's really all about your inner frame of mind and how you are able to build connections and how. So it is, but there's so much to it, right? And I feel like some of it is also just a facade, right? That you are putting up just because you don't know anything.
Maybe Priyank alluded to it earlier on, where you mentioned, Priyank, about the feeling, the sentiment of this nickname, the Mad Monk, where he probably had a very good relationship with those around him. And that's success, isn't it? That's harmony.
Yeah.
The harmony, the joy, the love, that's success. These other things, maybe not.
Being perceived as a cool kid, basically.
Do you think cool kid? I don't think cool would be the word.
He did go his own way, Guruji, and in some ways people have to admire that, right? Even at this age. And I never worry about Mukunda in those stories because I know he can stand his ground against anyone. It's pretty good banter. Yeah. That's all you need.
Yeah.
It's all you need in life. Good banter. Then you're fine.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. There's another one of those sentences that I found funny. He said, at the college halls, my presence rather than my absence would cause my classmate to exclaim in surprise. So that was basically, he acknowledged there that he didn't spend much time in the classroom. And then he describes the routine that he has. So he would use his bicycle and go at 9:30 in the morning. He would go to see his guru at the Panthi. No, he would go there from the boarding house to the hermitage, and he would bring his guru flowers every morning. Priyank?
Yeah, so this, I think he's alluding to following the scriptural instruction from the God Talks with Arjuna, chapter 9, verse 26, where it says, "The reverent presentation to me of a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water, given with pure intention, is a devotional offering acceptable to my sight." And this is exactly what Mukunda kind of is doing, isn't it, with a flower? Because if he picks it from from the garden, it's not necessarily going to be one of these beautiful flower shop bouquets, that we get during commemoration services where you get perfect, everyone gives the perfect flower. He's literally picking one off the ground. And this is essentially what Krishna says here, right? A reverent presentation. It doesn't say a perfect presentation. So like you can, even a leaf, Krishna says he'll accept. So a flower is one up from that. But would you like to, Chris and Lauren, read out what this description of this verse is from in God Talks with Arjuna?
Jesus said that the small gift of 2 mites presented with devotion by a poor widow was more pleasing to God than the wealth that was ostentatiously preferred by these words, Craig, you've caught me out here. Multitude of words back to back. Irreligious men, thank you. By irreligious men. The outpouring of heartfelt love is the only sacrifice the Lord desires from his creatures. God says, great yogis are rare, so I seldom receive from earth dwellers the most precious gift, complete surrender to me. Therefore, I accept happily even a little flower, tear sprinkled,
Tear sprinkled.
Tear sprinkled,
yeah.
Tear sprinkled, and devotionally fragrant from those who have little time for me. Though I give my time and gifts to them.
This stanza also means that man's most fleeting thought and most trifling action may be used as stepping stones towards his presence. True devotees devoutly offer to him the living leaves of their proliferating spiritual understanding and perceptions, the choicest blossoms of love from the secret gardens of their hearts, the fruits of their selfless actions, and the sanctifying sacred waters of intuitive inner divine communion gathered reverently from the river of meditation. Indeed, how compassionately indulgent and impartial the Lord is, that he so readily recognizes not only the mighty ecstasy of lordly yogis, but also the widow's mite of those who can give little to him, but do give all they have. Yogis perceive God's response in glorious, even spectacular ways. Striving devotees are blessed with divine thoughts and aspirations, God's loving silent voice encouraging and coaxing them forward to his waiting presence.
So beautifully read, Lauren. Thank you. This reminds me that one of the stories of the Bible where there's the teaching that there's a poor woman gave what little she had to the temple versus the very wealthy individuals that would give seemingly a lot, but really it was a pittance to them. It's one of the lessons that really stuck with me from the Bible. It's funny that it really is very meaningful. The relative sacrifice that you make in life, let's say, and that can be applied financially or otherwise to any scenario. So yeah, really, really nice reminder.
I found it. It seems to be a custom in India, but I still found it remarkable that he made the effort and brought him flowers every single day. I found it funny that he took it from the Panti boarding house garden. That reminds me of a story in Encinitas. They have like very beautiful gardens there, and then they have houses that are outside of the perimeter, and their gardening is also very nice, and they also have very beautiful flowers. And the monks, like one of the monks told me last weekend that people come by and just cut the flowers and take them. And he caught a lady once that was cutting flowers, and then she would tell him, "Oh yeah, it's for Guruji." So cute.
I think Prank was about to tell us that he was the guy that would bring an apple to a teacher every day to school. Was it Prank? Was that you?
No.
Although not that I think about it, I do see that in a different light, having read this. It's quite a nice gesture.
There's another very sweet story in Krishna. Krishna has a childhood friend called Sudama, and Sudama's really very poor, and Krishna becomes, an emperor and a king through his life. So Sudama's wife said to him, we've got nothing. Why don't you ask Krishna for help? And Sudama's there was like a brilliant soul, and he's a really hard worker, but nothing ever went right for him materially. So his wife was like, go to Krishna, ask for his help. And so I was like, no, I can't possibly. He's too good a friend of mine for me to disturb him with my material lackings. But she finally convinces him, and he goes, and he's like, what can I even present to Krishna? People go to Krishna with gold and flowers and kingdoms and all this because he's obviously God incarnate. What can I even go to Krishna with? And then Sudama and his eyes like, this rice, just some flattened rice, that's all they had. So Sudama wraps up some rice that they had in some cloth to take to Krishna. And then he's waiting to see him, and he sees other people give him, really expensive and crazy gifts. And then he finally goes up, and then Krishna embraces him. Like all the others, he stayed sat on his kind of throne, but he saw Sudama and he embraced him fully. And then he sat Sudama on his throne in his seat where Krishna was sat, and he sat on the floor and then talked to them as if were friends from back in the day in the ashram. And Krishna said, "What did you bring for me, Sudama? I know you brought something for me." And Sudama, like very reluctantly, took out this this handful of rice, and Krishna like made like the greatest big deal out of it. Like it was like the greatest gift. He was so like thankful, and he was like, and then he gave Sudama, he gave him like a bag or something, and he said, this bag will never be empty of rice. So he took this bag home, and then he always had food in his life. So there's another example of Krishna's teaching here. Like if you offer it with devotion and a pure intention, then Krishna will accept any offering, as Mukunda has, even for the flowers for Sri Yukteswar.
Beautiful. So he brings him flowers. So we're back in the routine of Mukunda here, where he cycled to Sri Yukteswar's hermitage. He brings him flowers. Then Sri Yukteswar greets him affably and invites him to lunch. And then he says, "I invariably accept it with alacrity," which is a word I had to look up, like cheerfulness. And then he says, "Glad to banish the thought of college for the day." So that's also something that's important, right? When you actually commit to the spiritual practice, you want to keep the world out. You don't care about it anymore. It's like Dayama famously said, right? Like, when I meditate, the world is dead to me. And that's kind of what he expresses there, I think.
It's so this still interaction between Sri Yukteswar and Mukunda with this lunch kind of sets up like their dialogue for the next episode that we're going to discuss, and you know how kind of gets a little bit heated, doesn't it? A bit emotional from Mukunda's perspective,
Mhm.
and but you know, because Mukunda's got his exams, right? And so Sri Yukteswar inviting him for lunch. In theory, Mukunda should say, "I've got an exam, so you know you've
Mhm.
asked me to
Mhm.
study. I should study, but I'll take your leave if kindly." But he obviously goes for lunch. But this really goes to the question, as with with what Mike said, when I'm meditating, the world is dead. You know, there's nothing there. And similarly, when you're with your guru, there's nothing else that's more important. So the question is, can you ever turn down a guru or a monk, even if you've got the most pressing and urgent activity to do, and your guru asks you to do something? I remember something similar happened to me. Not with Mukunda, of course, not with Paramahansa Yogananda, but the next best thing, one of the monks, we were at the last Kriya initiation ceremony in London. We were the monk and coordination committee and a few others. We were discussing the events for the next 3 or 4 days. So we were in the meeting room at the London Centre, and it was Brother Sivananda, and the coordination they'd because the meeting was going to go on till late. Coordination committee said, okay, we'll take the monks out to dinner at the closest restaurant because they won't have time to prepare their meal or whatever. We'll get something in, so we'll just take them to a restaurant. And I told coordination committee, you guys go. I'd love to join, but I'm fasting. This is a set day that I fast, so I can't go. And they're like, okay, fine, you don't have to come. So then so at the end of the meeting, Brother Sivananda was saying, "Oh, let's go for dinner now," and he made a big point. He didn't know that I was fasting. He made a big point. He said, "Priyank, you'll be joining us, right?" He put his arm around me, and I said, I quietly said, "Brother, I'll gladly join you, brother, but I'm fasting, so I won't be able to." He's like, "No, you don't need to eat. Doesn't mean you need to enjoy company. You don't need to have dinner to enjoy our company." So
Mm.
he kind of made me come, and I told one of the coordination committee who was smiling. I said, "You can't really turn down a monk asks you, even if you're going to just watch everyone eating, you can't really turn it down." And that's pretty much what transpired. I just sat on the edge, but brother pretty much had his arm around me the whole dinner, even though I wasn't eating. It was very sweet. It was very sweet.
Mm. Yeah, that's right. I feel like sometimes it's just for the uplifting presence, right? Not for the food, like Priyank said. So nice. Yeah.
Did you leave? Did you leave full and satisfied nonetheless, Frank?
Well, with Brother Sivananda's warm embrace, you could imagine
Yeah.
no food
Yeah.
is required.
You were spiritually nourished.
Mhm.
And
More
there you
nourishing than any calorie can
There you
offer.
go. And then in Guruji's routine, we're now after lunch, and where he says he now is sitting with Sri Yukteswar and listening to his incomparable flow of wisdom or helping with ashram duties. And then he would reluctantly depart at midnight to the Panthi, and sometimes he would even stay overnight, engrossing conversation and when he scarcely notices when darkness changed into dawn. So that's a full day and a half. Yeah.
Yeah, this is what I was referring to just now. When you're with the monks, or when you're with good company, even at university, this kind of brought nostalgia to my emotions, because many times we just talk through the night. When there's new people at university that you meet, or when you're in this common room, etc. So this is like a common thing, but he's obviously with his guru. But the point is, they're having a good time, and it's with good, uplifting company, and not not anything else. So it's a familiar experience for me. This is what he's kind of suggested. Yeah.
And in stark contrast to how he described his study, it's he mentioned the word staggered painfully but successfully. You could imagine the time going very slowly, grinding almost to a halt. That it's almost like watching paint dry compared to when he's in his guru's presence, and the time's flying so quickly that it doesn't even notice it. Notice that it's dark.
Yeah. That's when you know you're in the right place.
Mm.
When time flies like that. Yeah. And yeah, we shall see how this continues, because Guruji can live a life like this and still pass the exams, because God will help him. Lauren, do you want to give us like a little teaser of what the next episode will give us?
Sure. So next episode, it starts off with a conversation between Swami Sri Yukteswar and Guruji about his upcoming exams. And Mukunda is very alarmed about the fact that his exams are very soon and he's not prepared. But Sri Yukteswar asks him to seek the help of somebody that he knows. And we're going to find out what happens when he does.
Sounds exciting. Looking forward to that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me too.
Right. So we've reached the end of this episode, and we want to thank all the listeners and people viewed on YouTube. Jai Guru, everyone.
I agree.